All right, comrades. This is going to be a tough one. I took a bunch of notes on this light novel that I read, but then I deleted them by accident and then saved it. So, first of all, go ahead and like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your wife, whatever. Comment. Comment's fun. You can tell me how great I am and how awesome this whole thing is and how much you love listening to me talk about obscure visual novels. Not visual. It's not a visual novel. It's an obscure light novel. That's right. So this is by, fuck, I wish I had my notes. Kaye Ng, like NG, or something like that. And it's called Lily Clairet. And Lily Clairet's about a French girl, I think, who is living in Japan, going to like a Japanese high school, and like her various adventures being like a teenage girl in Japan. And this is only the first volume. I think I kind of glanced somewhere, and I think there's 8 or there's 7, and she's writing an 8th one. And the only one that's on like this book on tape master collection that I found was the first one. So Lily's she's kind of dour, she's kind of lazy, but she's like, and she's kind of like in a sour mood, but not like in a sour mood like Belle from Twilight. More like in a sour mood is just in like she just likes to be left alone and just kind of do her own thing. But then she has all these like quirky people in her life, right? Very much like what's that show called? Comey Can't Communicate, right? Where you have like the main character who's like very normal, is in this high school full of like lunatics. It's not that bad. But and I'm going to butcher these names, as in I kind of remember the names, but I don't remember exactly who they belong to. So there's Kizuma, who's like an auburn, redheaded, kind of orange hair. I think she's referred to as having orange hair, who's like, so Lily has like 3 best friends. There's it's like Saksora. I can't remember. There's Kizuma, and then there's Satori. There's Satori? God damn. Okay, so we're just going to use descriptions, because I literally had to write these down because I don't remember, because I was listening to this audiobook at like 2 times speed, and I kept hearing names, but, you know, I'm bad with names. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me, but I cannot remember people's names. All right, so Lily I know. Then we're going to go Big Sister, who's not her big sister, but it's like this girl. It's this big, taller girl. I think she's a year ahead, is what I gathered, of her in school. Like, she's a second year while Lily's like a first year. And she comes and stays with Lily, makes sure she eats, makes sure she gets up and goes to school. She's like Big Sister. She's like One-chan. And so there's Big Sister. Then there's Redhead, who's like another best friend, who is like she's like very conniving and very sneaky and very smart, but acts kind of like a ditz and is like super energetic and just loves hanging out with Lily. And Lily kind of like, there's some characters in this where Lily's like, I really don't like this person, but Kazuma, I think that's her name. If it's not, whatever, we'll just go with best friend. That's what we're gonna call her. So then best friend, but you know, it's like it's one of those things where Lily has like kind of like just a sourpotamus attitude generally in life, but this character, she's like, it's whatever. She always make me do stuff and like whatever, and like I'm kind of annoyed, but whatever. So there's best friend, and then there's Kendo Lady, and Kendo Lady she was in the Kendo Club, and then that changes shortly in this book. But she's super sweet and sincere and nice, and she's like best friend number 3 with Lily. And so she loves being with her, and she looks up to her and respects her, and she's the only one who's not like super crazy, at least in the first light novel. All right, so that's kind of the main cast. There's Lily and those 3 girls who pop up the most. Then we have like the secondary cast. So then there's there's like Bicycle Lady. And so Bicycle Lady is like head of the cycling club, and she's a first year, but she like showed up. She might be a second year actually. Anyway, she showed up. They all might be second years. Fuck, man. I wish I had my notes. Anyway, so she showed up and she like took over the cycling club like immediately and like ran out the previous president, and then they got to be second years, because now I'm thinking about it, because this happened like first year. But she might be second year and Lily's the first year. God damn. It's not that important. Anyway, so she ran up, and then she kind of treats Lily like she treats most people like an asshole, like she's like a princess, and like everyone is below her and yada yada. And then the redheaded girl, best friend, is like really good at messing with her and like fucking around with her, and she gets like very anxious when she's around, but she likes fucking with Lily. But then the redhead best friend like fucks with her, and so it's kind of like this strange like balancing act like who's around doing what. And then there's I think it's Yukihara. She's like a member of the student body council, and she's like the representative for their grade. And then there's Idol Lady, who's got pink hair, and so she's an idol so she's a school idol because she's like a part of like this idol culture thing, which is like where they get young women to like sing and be cute and sell merchandise and go and do stuff. And so everyone loves her and all the men love her and all the women want to be like her and they're all like in love with her and she's super cute. And she's got like a weird kind of like crush on Lily, where every time Lily's around, she comes and like touches her and is like she gives her like a ribbon and wants to be like near her and stuff. And it doesn't really resolve anywhere, so it's kind of confusing. Like, is she fucking with her or is she like sincere, or like what's going on with that? But Lily's like super creeped out by it. Every time she's around, she's like, oh my gosh, I hate this girl so much. Like, what is happening? And so it's like hilarity ensues, which is actually pretty funny. And then there's little girl who is very important to the story, but not like super important. She's like the sister of somebody that Lily knows, and she like pops up a couple times, but like she's essential to like the progression of the story. And I think that's like all the kind of like characters that are important. All right, so the story starts and Lily's like waking up late for school, and we just get to know her as a character, and we get to know her relationship. She gets a call from big sister best friend, and then she runs into redhead best friend, and they're both kind of like delinquent-y, not like delinquents like super delinquents, but like they're not getting into fights and they're not doing drugs and they're not having sex, not like that kind of like typical anime Japanese delinquent, with like not wearing their uniform or whatever. They're delinquents in that they like turn in homework late or like sleep in or like forget to do chores at school where they're supposed to do, and they're like they're not in any clubs, which is like a big no-no because like what are you doing after school? You're gonna get in trouble because you're not like invested in like the community and yada yada yada. And they're already late to school, or like they're already like gonna be late to school, and then they kind of get distracted. Well, first of all, Lily gets distracted running into like little girl. Little girl's like, I lost my cookie, and then Lily like looks up and sees a squirrel and is like, the squirrel took it. And then I think she gets her cookie back, and she's like, thank you so much, that really helped. And she's like, no problem. And then she runs into Kazuma, and then they run into like Pink Bicycle Lady, and then it's like we just meet these characters in like chapter 1. I think it's like 6 chapters, like typical kind of light novel stuff, or maybe 7. And so it's delightful, and we meet and then so she gets in trouble with the school teacher, and the teacher's predominant, but she doesn't really exist. She's always leaving stuff in class, so it's like whoever's job it is to clean the classroom is supposed to take it and give it to the teacher afterwards. It's like an unspoken rule, which that's actually very important for the story going forward. Anyway, so then she's cleaning, and then this is where we're getting introduced to like Kendo big sisters or Kendo best friend, who's like super sweet because she just stops and she's like, Lily, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I was late, so I had to clean it. And she's like, oh, let me help you clean. And so they help clean, and they run into this they find this room in like this back of this hallway, and there's like the student council ladies there, and we meet her, and she tells this like crazy story where she's like, oh, the first day of school I ran into this girl, and she's like, I'm gonna be the president of the journalism club, and she like submitted the paperwork for it and then like never showed up again. And so the student council body was supposed to like get rid of it, the presidency, but then they didn't because this girl just like never filed the paperwork to get rid of it. And she's like very concerned because she had like this girl like spoke to her soul, and this girl doesn't show up in the first volume, so like whatever. But then she essentially is like talking to Lily and this other girl about it, and she's like, if someone could be in like the journalism club, that'd be so good, because then like this girl wouldn't come back and be sad that nothing happened, and like what if she comes and she's like hasn't been to class and no one's heard of her, and like it's just kind of like odd stuff going on. Anyway, so Lily's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But then like somehow redhead best friend finds out, and then she's like, we're doing it. And so she signs them both up, and then she also gets Kendo best friend to sign up too and quit like the Kendo club. And Lily's like, oh my gosh. But that's like that day. So the next day is when they actually are all like in the journalism club, and it's time to get started. And that's where we meet the idol lady and her whole deal with like loving Lily. And then at some point during the day, she's hanging out with like big sister best friend, and they hear like, I think it's like Clairet play or something like that. I think it's Clairet over the speakers, and everyone's like aghast because it's like a prank, and they're like, oh my goodness. And I think at that second day, it's either the second or third day, is it's like the white day. So in Japanese culture for kids particularly, there's Valentine's Day and there's White Day. So Valentine's Day is when the girls, I think they make chocolate for the boys they like and give it to them at school. And then White Day is like when the guys get like a gift or get chocolate for like the girls they like. So they don't just have like a Valentine's Day, they have both, which is excellent. So it's White Day, and so like her old sister, the big sister best friend, is, and this is when like the music's playing and all that stuff, is like getting gifts because she's like beautiful and like stoic and stuff, and she just like takes the stuff and like throws it away or like whatever. I don't give a fuck about this, stupid. But then like and everyone else is like super excited, whatever, and Lily is kind of like, no one likes me. It's not a big deal. I don't really care. At some point, there's like a big because all the chocolate is gone. All right, so I think this is day 3, because day 2 is when they do journalism and they talk about how they're going to do the journalism club and they got to find a scandal and they got to like write about stuff and it's going to be so exciting and they can like figure out stuff to do. Yeah. So the day 3 I think is White Day, and that's when the chocolate disappears and everyone's freaking out. And then the what's her name? The idol lady, she opens her locker and there's a fucking wedding cake, like a mini wedding cake, but like a wedding cake in her locker. And she's like, oh my goodness. And there's a note, and the note's like says something about like, you know, you're so special and you mean so much to me. I want you to meet me at this bridge. And like, I took away everyone's like thing because only you deserve to have whatever. And everyone's like, fuck this girl. And she's like, ruh-roh. And so then she's super sad about this whole thing. And then they go back, they have journalism club, and they're like, hey, one of us has got to follow the idol girl and meet this person who stole the chocolates. That's the news. That's the story we're going to do. So then Lily, of course, loses. So she follows the idol girl like across town to like this like skanky, dirty, like karaoke bar. And she's like, what the fuck's this girl doing here? So doesn't she have like idol practice? And she goes in there and sees her just like singing by herself. And then like they make eye contact and Lily's like, I'm sorry. And then the idol girl like freaks out and runs out and is crying. And Lily's like, hey, it's going to be okay. And the idol girl like cries some more and like runs off. And Lily's like, ooh, boys. That was rough. Anyway, so on her way home, she runs into like little girl again. And she's like, hey, little girl. And she's like, hey, what are you doing? And little girl's like, I got a coupon for like 10 cookies, but the money and something, and I don't know what to do and something. And Lily's like looking at this bakery and trying to like talk to her. And she's like, hey, I've seen this cake before. And then the little girl's like, oh yeah, I was here yesterday. And somebody came and bought like the little cake. And it was like a high school student from your school. And she's like, you know what she looked like? And she was like, yeah, she's got dark hair and she's short and Japanese. And Lily's like, fuck. That's literally everybody. She's like, damn it. Anyway, at some point she like puts 2 and 2 together and figures out that it's the student council lady who it was. And so she meets her the next morning at school in the what's it called? She meets her next day at school at the school bakery. It's home economics, in the home economics class. So this student council chick, she's in there learning how to bake cupcakes or trying to bake cupcakes when Lily comes up and confronts her and is like, hey, I know you're the one who bought the cake for idol lady. And she's like, oh, no, it wasn't me. And she's like, I know it was you because the thing and then you acted like this and this is what happened. And she's like, oh, you caught me. I didn't mean for it to be so crazy. And she's like, aha, but why did you steal the chocolates? And the girl's like, what chocolates? No, I didn't do that. I saw the chocolates were stolen and then I wrote the note, and I shouldn't have written the note because I thought it was going to be very romantic, but then it wasn't. It was just crazy. And then the idol got in a lot of trouble and I feel super bad about it. Yada, 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 yada. And it's like, oh, poor thing. So then Lily's back to square one. She's like, oh, I wasted all this time, did all this stuff, and I still don't know who stole the chocolates. And then she starts like putting stuff together, and she's like, wait a second. Like, okay, so there was a 2-way radio, and it was in the faculty room, which is where where they make announcements, so that was playing. But the 2-way radio could have been playing from like somewhere else, because if the radio's there, the radio could have been controlled or it could have been set on a timer and then it would play. So the person didn't actually have to be there. And it was a 2-way radio. So that means it was like receiving information from somewhere and then it was playing. So it was like more of a transmitter, right? Because this thing was like being called in, and she's like thinking and she's like, I know who did it. And we find out with her like deductive logic that, and she goes to confront big sister best friend. And it's like, you stole all the chocolates. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Lily's like, no, you did it. And for the first time in this book, she's like very assertive about this. She's like, no, you did it. And she like goes through the whole thing. And she's like, you did this. And during this period, you were gone. Oh, and the last clue is she's like, this happened during art class. And she was with so-and-so in art class. But then someone else might not have been there. And there was like different art classes. And there's a whole thing about that. And she goes to like the art room where big sister, a best friend, is like, you know, she's very good at drawing portraits, and they were drawing portraits of other people that day. And she went and she found the box with all the portraits in it, and she flipped through it, and she found that the portrait of like other people were supposed to draw your portrait, and so she found the portrait of big sister best friend, but it was drawn by her. Da-da-da! And so that was like the final nail in the coffin. Anyway, So then she goes and confronts the big sister best friend, and finally the big sister best friend's like, well, you got like 20% of it right. And Lily's like, whatever, I was right. Why'd you steal the chocolates? And where are they? And then the big sister kind of goes through, she's like, okay, well, this is where you were wrong, this and this and this. And then Lily's like, wait a second, did you do all this so that I'd be more involved with school, so that I would, and then the big sister best friend's like, well, yeah, aren't you having fun? And Lily's like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. This is not fun. And then big sister best friend's like, no, you're having fun. I'm glad we did this. And then she's like, you just need to return the chocolates. Where are they? And then the big sister best friend's like, well, remember you told me that story about the squirrel with the cookie in the tree? And Lily's like, yeah, what about it? And she's like, did you ever think to look up? And so she took all the chocolates from all the lockers and just put them on top of the lockers. But no one looked up because everyone was looking down or looking in the lockers trying to figure it out. And Lily's like, oh my gosh. And that's like the end of the story. But there's an epilogue. So then the epilogue, Lily's like thinking about all this stuff, and no one really got in trouble because the chocolates got like secretly returned, and everyone was just like whatever. And she was gonna rat out her best friend, big sister, and she was like, "Oh, so dumb, whatever." And then she's like walking home, and she sees, and there's like other stuff that happens in this book. There's like stuff that might be related to further novels or light novels, which I'm never gonna read, so I'm like not worried about it. Like there's a whole thing with like, the cyclist bike was like in the journalism room, and then like it got removed and got wet, and she was upset about that. And then, but it wasn't like the journalism club, like someone else did it, but that doesn't really go anywhere in this because again, these light novels, a lot of stuff like builds, because it they're like intended to be like these ongoing like novellas essentially. Anyway, so the epilogue, Lily's walking home and she's like thinking about all this stuff, and she's like, oh my gosh, am I really having good fun with this thing? Am I really going to be more involved with school and with my friends? And then the redheaded best friend comes running up and she's like, look, look, look. And she's got this like sheet of paper, and it's got like a drawing of Lily chasing a squirrel or something, and it has like a story in it. And Lily's like, what is this insanity? And she's like, this is our first journal. And she's like, journal? It's like, yeah, we're the journalism club. I took it to the copy machine and the school faculty, and we copied a whole bunch of them. We're going to pass it out at school tomorrow. And Lily's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my mind. Oh man. And that's the end of volume 1. Excellent. At first I was like, oh, this is kind of boring. I don't know where this is really going. But I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did because it was delightful. This whole story was delightful. The characters are all fun, and they're quirky enough without being too quirky, which is my big complaint with Comey Can't Communicate, is it's like it gets a little over the top with the quirkiness. But this, it's like a perfect amount. Like everyone's kind of got their thing and their little quirks and their little like eccentricities, but nothing gets like, it doesn't like distract from like the overall story. It's like very interesting. And Lily's a good like straight man, if you will. And I enjoyed the writing of it overall. It's very entertaining. So if like, it's one of those things, like if I saw more light novels pop up of this story of Lily Clairet, I would definitely read them. Like if I go find another batch of like audiobook light novels, I wouldn't necessarily like, buy this. I mean, maybe if like for my daughter or something in the future, give her something like actual decent to read instead of all this trash fantasy garbage they produce in America. What a fallen terrible place. Anyway, so thoroughly enjoyed it. Highly recommend if you like just like chill, kind of like almost Nancy Drew-esque, but with like less stakes, kind of slice of life stories. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. Like it was very fun and cute, and everything made sense. And yeah, so there you go. That's Lily Clairet. And so go ahead, like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever. And I will catch you, comrades, later.